Hi, everybody. I know that you were waiting to see the interview with Melannie Denise Cunningham. We couldn't get her on Facebook, but we did a Zoom recording with her. And here's the interview.
Glamour, you can get that if you want to, but this the real deal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how are you?
I'm just exhaling right now. It has been a whirlwind of the last month, I would say, because I intentionally engaged in self-care. So I stepped off the grid and went to Jackson, Mississippi, to visit my girlfriend.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's like stopping time, for a minute. And she just loved on me, and I'm grateful for that. And then I came back, and I went to this place called the Whidbey Island Institute, and it's a wooded retreat center, like out here in Washington, but it really is in the woods. And I was working on anti-racism training,
hmm
and so it was people from all over the place. They were from the U.S. and then countries like Grenada and where were the other people from? Grenada and the Bahamas, the Caribbean places, Costa
okay.
Rica, yeah, Costa Rica, and yeah, we spent time together just working on these big questions of how white supremacy affects all of our lives and how it shows up in our lives, and we've got to be more intentional with recognizing how it shows up so that we can be intentional about disrupting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I mean, you have a phenomenal body of work. You have a phenomenal body of work.
Okay, but you know what, Dr. Pinky, I just found out the other day. I was researching because I'm getting my PhD. I wanna be like you, and so I was going down this rabbit hole. You know how you start researching something and you just start going down, down, down.
Yeah.
And I came across this term called multi-potentialite, and that's what I am. I'm a multi-potentialite, and they talk about multi-potentiality, and it's
hmm
people that do more than one thing and they're good at it.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
definitely you.
I embrace it because for the longest, I laugh about my story. I was in college for 6 years, right? And my dad getting my undergrad degree, and my dad called up at the beginning of the 6th year. He was like, "Okay, look, you've been in that school long enough to have some kind of paperwork. So something needs to be coming out there. This is the 6th year." And so he said, "I'm not paying for you after this anymore." And I was, and when I look back on it now, I'm like, well, that wasn't a lot of money back then, house terms, but that was the push I needed. And so I ended up in 6 years, I got a degree in general studies.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yes, and there was a little shame attached to that because it's like, who goes to school for 6 years and gets a degree in general studies? What the hell is that? And I did. But now that I'm in my 60s and I look back on it, on my career, that was spot on. So that is my evidence that, it's already
hmm
that your path is ordained, not
Yes.
that I needed to do a lot of different things to get to where I'm at. And
hmm Okay.
so, yeah, multi-potentialite. There's some more.
Hey,
You
I
kind
love
of like that. Dr. Vicky, you like that though, because you are wonderful in the higher ed spectrum, and then you got your creative side with your art,
Thank you.
you know? So I think you might want to look that up for yourself.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I can. I got a few hats that I'm wearing.
Yes,
Oh,
you
before
do.
we go forward, there's a little light glare.
Oh, okay.
It
That's
sort
the,
of
let me try to
shadows.
see.
Yeah, there we go.
Is
There we
that better?
go.
Okay, because that's the lake out there. That's why
Yeah,
it's
I see
um
that.
so
So
is that better?
multi-potentiality, I definitely have. I'm pretty sure I fit in that category. I'm pretty
I think
sure I
so
fit in
too.
that category. So now I want you to just tell everybody a little bit about who the Peace Queen is, because I know people want to know who's the Peace Queen, what does the Peace Queen do, and I think they got a little snippet of it when we were just talking a couple of seconds ago, and about the work that you do, the conference that you have, which was phenomenal. And I was so glad to be a part of that and look forward to it again. So tell us a little bit about the Peace Queen.
Okay, let's see. I want to start by saying that I live as a liberated Black woman in America. Okay, I have to say it like that, liberated Black woman, because when we think about this whole idea of race and racism and structural oppression and all of this that we're talking about, we're talking about us being born into a socialized system. You know, all these systems were already in place when we got here.
Yes.
And then we had to find our way into the system. We did not choose our parents or any of the folks that influenced our lives early on. It's important for me to say that because through socialization is when you start to understand concepts of racism and discrimination and stereotypes and bias, and it's how institutions shape it and then how they enforce these thoughts. And so as a Black woman, we already at the bottom, we the worst treated that there is to be treated, and most used and exploited. That's us. And so if we were to buy into that rhetoric and live our lives in the shadows of that rhetoric about what society, socialization says who we are, then we can't get ahead. We won't be able to break cycles of poverty and education and, all the things that attack our people and our culture. And so I preface it by saying, when you say, who is Peace Queen? A liberated Black woman, just doing her thing, not expecting to be recognized for anything, just minding my business and letting my steps be ordained as God said they should. All right. Mm-hmm. And so that liberated Black woman piece is, I decided a long time ago that I'm, ain't nobody the boss of me but me and God. Right. And so even my parents, you're not the boss of me. And the greatest power that we've all been given is our power to choose. And then it's just our life is a sum total or a collection of the outcomes of our choices. So once I figured out that I get to have a say in this, then as a multi-potentialite, and realizing that I don't have to box myself in on one thing. I don't have to. I get bored with this, I can go do something else. Other people will tell me that is not reliable and you're not putting your roots in where you need or paying your dues. And the way I see it is, if I don't feel like I'm valued in a space and I don't feel like I'm contributing, that my contributions are being honored, I don't need to be there. And so I, just go. And that's how I have lived. And my parents, if you all watched my TED Talk, you heard me talk about it in there. It's like my parents were so outdone with me coming up because I had a good government job. You hear me, Dr. Pinky? I had a good job, girl. Mm-hmm. It was a good job. And I was rising up the ranks. And one day I was driving to work and the thought came in my mind. It was the prayer. Lord, I don't know what I want to do, but I know what I don't want to do. And going forward and working in this plantation-esque environment, that's not what I want to do. And I went in and asked my supervisor to lay me off. And that was in my early 30s. And I'm 63 now and I haven't looked back. And the way I work now is the way I want to work. I work the way I want to work. So saying all of that, in my community, it's called, I live in Tacoma, Washington. This is where I'm coming to you from. And we have an awards program called the Greater Tacoma Peace Prize. And that prize is administered by a committee of people who scour the community looking for people that are doing peace work, peace building work. And it's a nomination process and a jury situation. One of my friends, Dr. Joanne Lasowski, decided that she wanted to nominate me. And I said, well, go on, girl, whatever, because you're not doing it for the recognition. I'm just doing it. So if that's what you want to do, just do it. And I promise you, I didn't think twice about it at all. And the first, she nominated me one year and I didn't get it that year. And it was no skin off my back. And then she nominated me the next year, which was 2018. And on April 4th, 2018, and I don't know if most people will get that date right away, but when I say it's already, it's already. April 4th, 2018 was the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
50th anniversary that day. And I have grown up with Dr. King, emulated him in my life. And so that was the sign, right? It's like, oh my gosh. So they called me on that day and offered me this prize. The prize, the Greater Tacoma Peace Prize, was a trip to Norway to attend the Nobel Peace Prize ceremonies. That's the prize in recognition of my body of work for peace building. And in that nomination, Dr. Joanne put stuff back for as long as she could remember all the things that I've been doing. And so I got a chance to go there. And I was like, okay, my title that they gave me for winning is Greater Tacoma Peace Laureate. Okay, but I said, okay, that's cool, but I'm gonna be the Peace Queen.
You defined yourself.
I defined myself. And then they said, well, we're not gonna call you Peace Queen. And I said, I don't care. I'm gonna call my own self Peace Queen, whatever. Why does it always have to be a either or?
Right.
That's a word for you right there. It doesn't have to be an either or. This is absolutely a both and situation. And so I just be like, I don't care what you think. Liberated Black woman talking, whatever, right? But when it was announced in the newspaper, the big announcement that the newspaper did, that the community did, the headline said, Peace Queen goes to Norway. So the moral of that lesson is make up your life. Whatever it is that you want it to be, you can make it up. Just be it. And now Peace Queen is an Emmy Award winning documentary, because I felt like if I'm getting the honor of this award to get access to a spot where most people in the world never get access, because it's only 1,000 seats in the room. And in the room is the King and Queen of Norway is in the room, and all these fancy dignitaries. So I figured, well, I'm going to do my best to share this with the community. So that's what motivated the documentary. And then it really was about just following me around through all this VIP treatment that I got. And then I was really looking for Black people, because I wanted to know what Black people's lives are like in Norway. Because you think in Norway, you just think of white people. I'm like, okay, where the Black people living like? So I met some brothers and talked to them about how they interact with police and stuff. And then I figured out, I said, Norway can't be all that peaceful, not 100%. They got to have something going on. So then I uncovered some of their own unpeaceful.
Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, and it was just great. And we had a really good time. And Yeah. And I did it, but the other thing is you can't do it without a team.
Right.
And so I went to TV school locally here at a place called Bates Technical College. And during that time when I was doing internships and stuff, I was able to meet the producers and directors of Bill Nye the Science Guy. I don't know if you've heard of them, but
Oh, absolutely.
have had. So the producers, the creators and producers for Bill Nye the Science Guy actually live in Seattle. And so during my training, I had an opportunity to meet them. And then they took a liking to me. I took a liking to them. And so we've been friends since 2000. And when I got this honor, then I called them up and I'm like, hey, I think that we should partner up and work together to produce this documentary, because people won't have access to this. And so they thought about it and then took us on. So we partnered with McKenna Gottlieb and producers, which is them. And then those are A-list producers, right? So then they got A-list friends. And I ended up getting Peter Rummel, who is the photographer for Rick Steves' travel show.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, he's one of Rick Steves' photographers. He shoots all those pretty shots.
Oh, wow.
And so he signed on for us. So we've got some beautiful shots in the film that Peter took. And then I got excellent audio engineers. That studio is called Bad Animals, and they are amazing. So yeah, it was a matter of just putting together a good team. And Joanne Lasowski, the one that nominated me, she was a producer on the team. I invited my girlfriend, Jewel Diamond Taylor, to be my +1, because, I don't have a boo or anything. I mean, if this video goes far and wide and any of your viewers have uncles or cousins,
you heard it here first.
Yeah, because I didn't have a boo or anybody to take with me, so I took my girlfriend Jewel. She was grateful for, super grateful for that, and that was such a blessing to. I called her up on the phone. She lives in California, and I just called her up one morning, and I said, "Girl, what you doing?" She's like, "Nothing." I said, "You better sit down, because I got something to ask you." She said, "What, girl?" I said, "You want to go to Norway to the Nobel Peace Prize Ceremony with me?"
What an honor, what an honor. And that documentary was, oh my gosh, it was top notch. It was awesome. I watched it all the way through and shared it with other people. And there was so much information that I learned from that documentary. And I do know a young lady who's African descent who was raised in Norway.
Wow.
And yeah, and she was talking about the police systems there, and like it showed in the documentary, a Black person can do pretty well in Norway.
Yeah, because they don't have guns. I mean, it was really life-changing for me to watch these Black young men look at each other when they're trying to understand about, do the police have guns? I think they lock it in the car, or
it was no guns.
Yeah, no guns. And then I asked one of the female police officers. I was just walking down the street and I went up to her. I said, "I heard y'all don't carry guns here." She said, "No, we don't." And I said, "Well, how do you de-escalate conflict?" She said, "We use our words."
It's simple, but it's profound. And if our police in this country would do more of that, that might de-escalate some things, because well, I don't have to tell you, it's pretty bad. And instead of shooting to kill and killing our young folks, especially young men and African-American young men in particular, why not try to diffuse the situation?
Well, what I learned being in Norway, though, is they truly are intention to rehabilitate.
Right.
That's their goal. And our goal is not to rehabilitate. We're to criminalize. We're to
Right.
profit off of the labor, the backs of these folks. That's not,
Absolutely.
we mean that, we don't mean it for good of society, that, and other than capitalism, right? That's a prison industry is a business.
Yes.
And so, so you have very different metrics that drive success. They're trying to rehabilitate the person, so they don't leave them in deprivation. You know, they honor, they value the person. So it's a big difference.
A big difference. A big difference.
It's a big difference. So I can show. Let me show your viewers. Here it is.
Yeah. That's a beauty. That's a beauty.
Isn't she pretty?
Yeah. I've actually seen one up close and personal before. A few years back, a young lady actually won one. That is, I mean, oh my gosh, so few people get that type of honor. So few people. And just the, you know, just you being you and doing the work that you do, it's wonderful to be rewarded for just being yourself and doing what you do.
That's why I'm overjoyed, because your people got to know, and you've known me for a long time, that this is significant for all of us, because I am just me.
Yeah.
And that's it. And if it comes out of my mouth, it does. And people, that's what liberated Black women do. You tell the truth, right? But you're centered in love. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's the thing. We don't hate on each other. We're loving each other and we're lifting each other. But when we have those opportunities to be in spaces of influence, you know, sometimes we're the only Black person. I know for me, I'm the only Black person in the room sometimes. In very influential rooms.
Yes.
I can't be up in there wondering what white folks think about me. That's it. That can't be my mindset. My mindset has to be, what is it that we have got to do to advance the conditions for everybody, the masses of the people, not just me because I got in the room. And that's where I feel like, at least in this generation, and what COVID is offering us an opportunity to do, is to re-energize the movement. You know, when we were coming up, you know, and I look at my you know, glory, hallelujah, formative years in the 60s, 70s, you know, the 70s for sure. The 70s, 80s is like, you know, that's my stomping years. And in the 60s and 70s, it was a collective vision.
Absolutely.
Power to the people, keep hope alive, you know, Black power. I mean, it was about the collective rising of our people. And somewhere along the way, when we're saying, well, we want to make it better for our children, and we don't want them to have to come up with what we came up with, and it's a new season, it's a new day. We forgot to teach our children that part.
Yes. That
part about the we. So now we didn't move from the we to back to the I.
Yes, yes.
And on steroids, because I don't know about y'all, I got a 14-year-old over here with me. That's my granddaughter. And I don't like her sometimes. I don't like her sometimes, girl.
I totally understand. I totally understand. And yeah, that it's really sad that some of those principles that we grew up with were not passed on and instilled in the younger generation. Something was lost, and it's gotten so out of control in some instances that now people are wanting to talk about bringing it back. But how do you get back to that? You know, how are you going to do that?
We got to snatch it back.
Yeah.
Okay, this is time, and it's urgent. We have to snatch it back. They done got that $1 trillion package plan passed. Then those of us that hold nonprofit organizations and stuff, we got to be on the ground getting that money, right? We have to be with one another, writing grants together, as partners instead of trying to go it solo and get your little piece and not share. You know, be strategic about what it is that we're doing, and then bring these programs back. I know for me, I remember in my community, the what was that group's name? They were the something social club, but they put on the Red Rose Cotillion. Okay, now the cotillion was the coming out party, and I had to go to these classes and learn about womanhood and girl stuff and manners and, you know, all of that. Then we did the ballroom dancing, and the business people paid for us to go out to dinner and use what we learned. And then we had a big old formal dance where ball gowns and tuxes and, you know, things like that. We don't do that anymore.
No, it's very rare. And I think I was involved in something like that in 2001. 2001. That's been a minute ago.
That's 20 years.
To have the young men dress, the young ladies wear ball gowns, and of course some didn't have that, so it was provided for them.
The community rallies around you and make sure she get the gown, and the homeboy gets the tuxedo, and you know, we take care of these kids. That's what we did.
We don't. And in doing that, even back then, things were changing, but you saw a whole different persona when they put on those suits and when they put on those gowns. It was a totally different behavior. Like, oh, I'm gonna walk taller and do a little bit better because of this.
This is what I'm doing. I like how I look. Now, I also want to bring people back to the time frame. If you think about back in the 90s, right, the late 80s, the early 90s, that's when the crack epidemic came in, and it hit us the most hardest. And so then that's when we had mothers raising crack babies. And then that's when, I mean, when you start to look up the trends and statistics for us, that's when you're going to see a rise in these diagnoses. That's when ADD and all of that started showing up on the radar, and you know, starting to really affect and isolating our children in quote special education and you know, these kind of things. So those drugs came in and really, you know, dropped a bomb on us. That started to send the fathers to prison, and you know, and then the babies that were being born with different conditions, and so then you've got babies growing up that can't help themselves, and then on the other side you got those of us that are getting through the door. We running away from our culture. So
very true.
We've been a little confused for a while, but now it's back front and center that Black lives do matter. Okay, and Black people must believe that for ourselves first and foremost. Don't even care what other people think about it. We got to think about it ourselves.
Absolutely. So very true. And speaking of that, talk about your conference that you do every year, and how you bring in all of these different groups of people together and putting them in the room. So share a little bit about that, because I know a lot of our viewers don't know about that, and it might be something that I think they want to be involved in.
We would want you to come. So the conference Dr. Pink is speaking on is called the People's Gathering. You can look it up. It's called the People's Gathering at Pacific Lutheran University. And it's an idea that I had maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, where I was really kind of out in the front. That was before Kaepernick took a knee and all of that stuff. And it really, the conversation got heightened. But I just figured that there had to be some organized way for people to talk about race and put it in professional development. You know, nobody was doing that. Who could be bold enough to say, come to this conference, and then I'm gonna put white people in this room and Black people in this room, and Latino people in this room who nobody wanted to stay away from, run towards something like that. And then God said to me one day, the way around that fury is to tie it to the census, because the U.S. Census is absolutely when the federal government forces us to talk about race.
Mhm.
Okay, you got to pay attention. You hear everybody talking about, well, we don't want to talk about race, and we don't want to learn this, and we don't want to do that. Well, then why every 10 years do you make us talk about race? Okay, because you make and don't fill out your census form. You see how they come and hound you and track you down? I dare you not to fill it out. We gonna get you, right? So all this time, really think about it, people. They don't want us to talk about race, but every 10 years they make you get in that race box.
Yes.
And so I said, all right, well, let's leverage that. And when you register for the conference, the People's Gathering, you register based on the box that you check on the census form. So what box do you check on the census form? Then that determines the dialogue room that you go into. And then there is expert facilitation, expert dialogue facilitators in each of the rooms. The white people have their facilitators in their room, and they talk about white people stuff that is necessary to talk about around race. And the agenda is determined by them. Okay, so now we're looking at human-centered design. We're not saying everybody go in this room and talk about this. You got to talk about what you need to talk about in your community. And so on the census form, it says Black and African American and African. There's a box, so we have our room. And then it says Hispanic, Latin descent, there's a box for that. And there's a box for 2 or more races. There's a box for Asian and Pacific Islander and Native Hawaiian. So each one of those boxes has a room. And then normally you have some people check human. It's most of the time that people write down that they're just human. Not very much, but
Yeah.
and it's usually white people that do that. So I just put them in the white room. I just put them in the white room and let it go. And what we also do is from the podium that we let the people know from the very beginning that we are very comfortable talking about race, and that the design of the conference decenters whiteness. So it is not built to favor any fragility. Because you know how we do when we go to conferences or have any kind of workshops and we try to talk about race, then somebody's going to jump in and have something fragile to say, and then they feel it's going to get hurt. And then, you go down that road versus staying on the point that you came to make. So we don't allow that at all. And if your feelings get hurt, then somebody can help you get them unhurt. But, we don't play that.
Yeah.
Because that's what's normal. We are serious about moving the needle forward and get people, at least from a professional development standpoint. That's what we're doing. We're skill building. And then what it turns out being for the Black people, for the non-white people, is the most amazing, liberated, validating time that they have together, just talking about, we don't even talk about white people. We talk about our own liberation and what we have to do to get ahead and be better as a people. It's very positive. So, and that's what I hear from the other rooms. And then at the end of the day, we all come back together as an entire group. And then each group reports out what they want the general body to hear. And white people are the last group to be called on, because in a system of decentering whiteness, then they are not taking up space in the conference. They can wait and hear And if we run over time, then they can compensate.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's a phenomenal conference. The dialogues are phenomenal, the reporting out, and it gets people comfortable about talking about them. So it's a great experience, and I would advise anybody, when you do your next one, send me the information.
I
I'll
will.
promote it, because I think it's something that everyone, especially people who are business people, people in the public, they need this. Leaders need this,
Yeah.
so
And that's
that
who
they
we
can
get.
understand their team.
That's right. And we ask them to bring your team.
Yeah.
You know, come as a team, not just as an individual. Come as a team. Last time we had we broke the 500 mark, the 500 barrier. So we had more than 500 people, and they came from all over the place, mainly in Washington State. And there's state government workers, city workers, higher education, private sector, nonprofit. I mean, they come from all unions. We had the union people come. I mean, everyone's coming for, to get their learning on and practice. This is the practitioner side of things.
And the cool thing is, COVID didn't stop it; just shift to virtual, which was just extremely well done and extremely well facilitated, and it was just like being there. We were there, but we were virtual. But I think the content and the takeaways were just as profound. I really do.
And thank you, Dr. Pinky. And what we're trying to do next is, since we have built this capacity of successfully hosting dialogues, then we are hoping that we could take that model. So say, for example, you have a community that wants to host the race dialogues, then you can get with us as continuing education and the university's umbrella. And we can work with you to say, bringing in your local people and working with your local people and our people, because the idea would be to build your capacity to continue the dialogues, not that we have to keep coming every time, or if you want us to do it every time, but to be able to get these pods of dialogues going on a regular basis, that we're training and we're getting understanding out there. So the next gathering is November 10th.
November 10th, remember that, folks.
November 10th, and our topic is going to be truth telling about critical race theory.
Now that's timely.
Yeah, truth telling about critical race theory, because people come to us for the truth. They know we're going to speak it. We're not going to sugarcoat it. And so that's what came to me. That's what God said. That's what this is, truth telling about critical race theory. So we'll have some experts in the morning that are going to speak on that, and then also how to build a community of we. That's not a collective of I's. That we're working towards building a community of we. And so we'll start our we practice in November, and it'll carry over to April. And really getting people to, think about their communities of we.
Yeah, and I think that's so timely, because I don't have to tell you, critical race theory is like, it's the buzzword, but what does that mean?
They don't know what it means, and nobody's standing up in front of a classroom saying, "I'm teaching you critical race theory."
Right.
It doesn't work like that. But you get ignorant people with a little bit of information and a little bit of misinformation, and they're ignorant inside of this socialized world that we live in. Of course, they're going to run with that. That's the next shiny thing to keep you distracted from staying on course.
That's the word, distraction. They take a sound bite, and we know sound bites have really destroyed people's careers, hint, hint. But
yes.
yeah. So I think this is needed to talk about it. It's not enough to talk about it. We need to define it and let people know what this actually means, because there is so much misinformation out there, and people use that and twist it in many different ways. And then we see it in the media and it's going, and like, that's not what that is. And that, I'm kind of anti-media. I watch the news every day, but you also have to decipher what is the truth and what's not the truth,
Yes,
because media has distorted so many things. But there are many of us, many people who take what they see in the media as gospel, and it's not.
that's right. It's truth. That is their truth. And that's why we've got to really empower these on the ground talking situations. Now, the other thing that listeners or viewers got to understand is everybody's not ready for the message.
Right.
And so we just have to make sure that we take our passion and we're steering it in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Working on the young people.
Yeah.
That's my total strategy, is to work on the young people. Make sure that they are feeling, make sure they feel, make sure they care, make sure they're paying attention. Don't let them get away with, I don't know, whatever. We can't allow that. They've got to be able to do some sort of critical analysis. Give us some kind of argumentation. Like, don't just be dumb in the world. We can't allow that. So that's calling on all the grandmas and aunties and uncles and nanas to be engaging their young people and their children in these critical conversations, so that they are ready to stand up in the classroom when they're teaching them social studies right now, and they still just want to push slavery. And my granddaughter, for example, she's 14. She's been to 2 African countries right now and completed a philanthropic project in one of them. And so when that was happening to her in real time, she was able to raise her hand and go, wait a minute now, this ain't computing. Because I've been to 2 countries, and what you're trying to talk about here, that's not my full story right here. I didn't see all of that all the time. Not that people in Africa aren't poor, as they are all over the place.
Right.
In the United States too. But but why don't you ever see the pictures of wealth and prosperity and thriving?
They're painting a picture. And I know for many, many years, I made it my business to add an element of critical thinking to classes that I taught, because I wanted the students to think critically. And I would always say, they bring me some, consider the source. Let's dissect this and think critically, and not just take it at face value. Let's unwrap this. And I remember being in college, and when you were sharing your granddaughter's story, I was in college, and Mrs. Ayate, she was an American woman. She was married to an African, and she often said people thought she was the African and her husband was the American, but she taught history, and I just ate history up. She taught history, not necessarily in the book. And when I was a freshman in college, there weren't stories in the history book about us. There weren't stories in the history books about the things that people of African descent had done, the creativity, the inventors, and all of that. But I grew up in a home where people talked about that kind of stuff. So I went to Grambling State University, and out of, oh gosh, we must have had about 60 Black kids in the room. I was one of the few that could answer the questions, and she would ask questions about different historical things. And then finally, like, I just probably need to be quiet because nobody else is answering. But they didn't know those things. And that information was not in the history books.
It's not in the books.
Yeah. And even today, trying to not talk about certain things and not wanting uh, government officials in states not wanting certain things included in history books. Why not? Why can't we talk about these things? So it's still, even eons later, after I've been out of college, there's still that type of strategy going on where these are things that we're gonna sugarcoat it, candy coat it, or just act like it didn't exist.
Yeah.
And our young folks need to know that and have those experiences so that they can stand like your granddaughter say, that's not
My
that's not the
experience.
whole story.
Yeah, that's not my experience. Yeah, and it's up to us. I mean, we may have skipped a generation or so in passing those stories on, but we've got to make it. It's got to be. We must insist because this is urgent.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, wow, this has been phenomenal as I knew it would be. And wow, I can't wait. Our audience and our viewers are going to absolutely love this. And, if they send questions, I'll be sure to forward them on to you. If they want you to answer some things, we'll do that. But I thank you so, so much for being here. This has just been phenomenal. Just
It's been
phenomenal.
wonderful. So
Yes.
wonderful. Thank you for thinking of me. And make
Absolutely.
sure when you send out the communication, send them a link to the documentary.
I shall do that.
Because we kept it private so that we can, determine how we want the work to move.
Okay.
And so you got to get the link from us right now, but you have it.
Okay.
So feel free to share it with your viewers, and if they have any questions, let me know.
I shall do that. Thank you so much, and congratulations again on that Emmy. Well-deserved honor. Well-deserved honor.